Guest for this hour is our Democrat of the day. We're heading out to Senate District 15, and Anita Gaul is kind enough to join us. We actually had Anita on the air. She wrote an excellent editorial for the Minnesota Reformer. We talked to her about that. She has made the decision to run in Senate District 15. She's kind enough today to join us to talk about her campaign. Anita, thank you very much. I appreciate the time.
Well, I appreciate the time, too, Matt. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Thanks for coming on back. Okay, so your article, we should remind everyone, your article you had in Minnesota Reformer, rather, was that you were talking about being a Democrat out in rural Minnesota.
That's correct. I think it was November of 2021 when I wrote that article, and it was published, and then you subsequently had me on the program, and I talked about, what is it like to be a blue voter, a Democrat out here in, let's face it, a overwhelmingly red part of Minnesota.
But the reality is, you said that this is that, at the end of the day, it came down. You were talking, it's like, DFL policies are the ones that are helping people. The Republican policies are not. And that's just the reality. I mean, the Republican policies is just to basically tax cuts. And that's, nothing helping the community. And as you and I were talking, it's like, it's not like these rural communities haven't gone through just as much pain as everyone else with the pandemic, with schools, with education, with transportation and road expansion. The reality is that the DFL is the party that's going to go out there and help these people out in this district.
Sometimes the challenge to remind people of that. It's like, look, it's Democrats who are getting the money to flow into communities. Wake up. We're trying to help you, and it has been an uphill battle, but I hope we're making progress. And as a candidate for the state senate, I'm working hard to bring home that message to say, Democrats are helping you. Help me, help you, I'm back. How's the line now? Can you hear me better?
A lot better. There you go. So, I was just talking about this, and this is not your district, but the 212 expansion. They just announced it today. Finally, they're going to have complete 4 lanes on 212 all the way there. They're going to stretch it by Cologne. They're going to expand that out. That's Joe Biden. Joe Biden's doing this as federal dollars. He's coming in. He's taking care of it. And as Republicans have promised they're going to do that for the last 30 years, they haven't gotten it done. Finally, a Democrat's going to do it. Cue Republicans taking credit for it. Because
of course.
That's kind of the way things go. And it's not necessarily want to be... it is hard. As you said, it's hard to be out there as a Democrat. But I believe one of the things which is great, and this is one of the reasons I'm happy you're running for Senate District 15, is you get it. You understand it's not about just yourself. It's about the betterment of the community, the betterment of people, an even tide raises all boats. It's that kind of mentality, and you get that. And so I'm extremely happy you're running down in Senate District 15.
That's exciting because I'm finding that a lot of people are excited when they see that there is a strong, viable DFL candidate who is willing to put up the fight, to fight a Republican incumbent who's been entrenched in the seat for a long time. It energizes people, and the amount of support that has come pouring out if people are like, I'm so glad you're running. I'm so glad we have a strong candidate. What can I do to help? That's really been encouraging as I've gone through this campaign.
Just for everyone out there, let's give a little background. Who exactly is Anita Gaul?
That's a good question. Who exactly am I? Well, in a nutshell, I'm a teacher, I'm an author, I'm a historian. I actually grew up on my family's farm here in Southwest Minnesota. I'm a daughter of Southwest Minnesota. I left the area after I graduated from high school to attend college. I ended up earning my PhD in history from the University of Iowa in 2009. I then moved back to the area, and I currently live in Marshall with my husband and 3 school-aged children, and I am currently a history professor at a community college here in Southwest Minnesota. And
we should mention, let's describe the best we can Senate District 15. It's basically south of the Minnesota River, right from just west of Mankato all the way to the border, correct?
Yes, all the way to the border. So it's 5 whole counties. It's the county of Lyon, Yellow Medicine County, Lacaparo County, Redwood County, and Brown counties. So this includes the cities like Marshall, all the way east to New Ulm, Granite Falls, Redwood Falls, Madison. So, geographically wise, this is a huge swath of territory to cover. I can't tell you how many parades are in this. Okay, I can't tell you. It's like a dozen. I've been in about a dozen parades this summer because it's such a huge district. So, and I put a lot of miles on my car. a lot of miles. But those are the 5 counties that are in District 15.
I'm gonna start off with the big one here. I mean, we have seen in conservative hotbeds as Nebraska and Kansas, the overturning of Roe v. Wade has changed the dynamic greatly in there. And I mean, there 538 polling numbers. We're looking at potentially looking like a 10-point swing. When you're out in the district, you know, are you getting any feedback on that issue? And if so, what are you getting?
Yes, I am. Over the course of the summer, I have knocked just over 1,000 doors in different towns throughout my district. And not a lot of people want to engage on the issues. You know, they don't want to be like, well, what do you think about this? Most people just sort of dismiss me out of hand. Maybe they don't like politicians coming to their door. But of the people who do pause and say, okay, what party are you from? The number one question that I've gotten is, what do you think about the Supreme Court decision on Roe v. Wade? That has been, if they stop to ask me, and that's been it. And to be honest, of the women who have asked me that, every single one has been, I hope you support reproductive freedom. I'm really concerned about that. That's what's determining my vote. I can't speak for my husband, but I'm glad to hear that from you. So I am agreeing with those poll numbers. I'm hearing that from my future constituents as well.
It's something that, and you know, this is, as gay marriage is going to be on the ballot, contraception is going to be on the ballot, all these other things if Republicans win. The reality is that for women, this has been a right. You know, this has been a right to control their own bodies and their own health care and their own futures. It's been their right for 50 years. As I can tell you here in the cities, my wife is livid. My neighbors, I know conservatives, longtime conservatives who have said, I'm done. I'm not voting for those guys again. They've taken away my rights. I mean, it is such a base thing. And I understand people like talking about taxes and stuff, but you start taking away people's human rights. I mean, that's a very different issue. I don't care which part of the state you're in.
I agree. It's motivating. It's one of the things I remember the day the decision was handed down. I was upset. And then my 16-year-old daughter texted me, and she said, Mom, I'm crying. I just heard the decision. And then I became, in a sense, angry. Like I was angry. I'm like, I can't believe this happened on my watch. I feel, I'm so angry that this happened, and my daughter has to face this, So I agree. This becomes really personal when a constitutional right I thought I had was stripped away from me just like that. So it's definitely motivating.
With your district here, let's talk a little bit of ag, because one of the things I have been a big advocate for, and you and I have talked about this before too, is I love the idea of if a farm is making their margins are less than $75,000, that the state will offer a health care option for them, that they can buy into the Minnesota state plan. That way they're not having to work 40 hours off the farm to afford health insurance someplace else. They can work the farm, get their health insurance. I think that's a great plan. Every Democrat I've talked to, every DFLer is like, that's a fantastic plan. And here's the fun thing. Every conservative farmer I've talked to said, wow, that's actually a really good idea. I mean, your thoughts on something like that? I mean, I think and that's just one issue, and that's one I brought up, but there's a lot of things that are not being addressed with the farmers today that we need to get out there and make sure is being addressed, because the Republicans will not do these things.
That is absolutely true. I think they just keep painting Democrats are like, well, Democrats just want to tax and spend. And so they want to paint us into this corner. But, yeah, it's imperative on us DFLers to get out and say, like, no, look at all the good things that Democrats are doing to make your lives better, to enhance and improve our rural communities. I mean, do you want our communities to thrive? Do you want, sons to be able to take over the farm from their fathers, or daughters to be able to take it over from their fathers? It's Democrats who are making this possible. It's Democrats who are getting money, to improve our streets. It's Democrats who are proposing how we can make health care more affordable and getting money for our schools. Our rural schools need money. It's what keeps families here, what attracts new families to our rural communities. So, yeah, again, it's breaking down this, barrier, this stereotype that all we want to do is tax and spend. Well, it's not true.
Well, here's what I would say is this. my response to that would be, okay, first of all, Republicans tax the living daylights out of you, and they give all that money to the wealthiest people. You're not getting that money back. I would rather go with the party that is taking tax dollars and putting it back into roads, into schools, into the environment, into healthcare, into people's individuals' rights. I would rather do that as opposed to make sure another billionaire gets a tax cut, because every time a billionaire gets a tax cut, you're not getting any of that money back. Let's just be honest about it. That's how I throw it back, because you're right. I mean, it's a narrative they've been able to push, but at the same time, they're the ones that are giving all the money to the wealthy people and acting like they've done something good.
Right, but then taking credit for all the things that they voted no to,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
Right, all the bills and that they voted no to, but now they're like, oh, look, we're getting a Highway 212 expansion. Isn't this great?
I did this. What was a Stauber up in 8? Remember him when the airports were part of this infrastructure package? He voted against it and said, well, thank God I was here to. No, you didn't do that. Stop lying. You did not do that.
I know. You just want to sort of stand back and raise your hand. But you voted no. Yeah.
They're not there helping you. And by the way, and if I can take this into a different direction, you brought up education. And I had a discussion earlier this week. We were talking about the school district that had to actually bring in teachers from the Philippines to teach because they could not get enough teachers in the community. And I've often said this. I said I think teachers are brilliant. They're wonderful. And there does seem to be, when it comes to rural education, this disconnect with conservatives, that when you scream at them about individual representation within their own classroom, that what they can teach, or even go violently after them because, God forbid, the school district tried to put in some safety protocols during a pandemic and they violently attack them. And there just doesn't seem to be an understanding of, well, when you're viciously mean to these people, it becomes harder to hire teachers in your school district. And as you know, I think I've lived in rural America as well. One of the big things is when schools have to close and all of a sudden the entire community is upended because kids are having to drive 20, 30 miles in a different direction because they have to go to a school there because they can't, there's not enough teachers, there's not enough funding. The Republicans have done a number here on these schools out there in rural America because they've defeated referendums, they've driven teachers away. I mean, we've got to make sure we keep the base there because, that's the last thing anyone wants is these schools to close.
Absolutely. In these rural communities, schools are our lifeblood, right? When your school closes, it's like the death of your town.
Yes.
And if you don't understand, you have to fund these rural schools because really, do you want your kids to have to get on the bus at 6:15 in the mornings because they have to now ship them, you have to consolidate, you have to ship them 20 miles to a different small town and put all these teachers who now have to either go find another job or they're just unemployed, right? And these teachers, they're your neighbors. Mm-hmm. They're your neighbors, or maybe your relatives, too, in these small towns. Let's admit it. A lot of them are our relatives. So, fully funding, people are saying, well, they're just, what did Scott Jensen call them, the black hole of education?
Yeah.
That's just garbage. These schools are what provide people opportunities, the great equalizer, and what keep our small towns thriving. So, again, that's another narrative that we have to keep pushing back against.
Well, and it's they fight against a referendum which would raise their taxes maybe $30 by basically doing something that when they close that school and they have to ship the kids away, they're paying $100 in extra gas every week. As opposed to they say, I stopped the referendum. Now, why am I paying so much money for gas? Okay, It's not exactly rocket science here.
Okay, good point.
You talked about higher education here, and let's talk a little bit about that because, one of the things I think is great. Now, this has always been the case, I think, in rural America, and it's been a fault of urban America, that they've moved past the trade skills, agriculture as a career, trade skills as a career. It's not been there. I think that, let's talk a little bit about there. Do you feel as if the higher education system out in rural America is servicing the kids that are coming through these high schools now and giving them the options that they need?
I absolutely do think so. I teach at Minnesota West Community and Technical College, and we have at least six campuses in this region. And we are in the high schools promoting our programs, providing local students the opportunity to go into really well-paying jobs, electrician programs, diesel mechanic, wind turbine technology, nursing assistants, all sorts of things. We are providing the pathway for people to come right out of high school, go to school for a couple years, and come out with really good, high-demand jobs, and they can stay in this area. And to be honest, we're holding our own in enrollment. I think people are recognizing that our 2-year degrees and going into these professions are a viable option, and not to take anything away from 4-year institutions, but they also can provide people with opportunities and good paying jobs and a good living and stay right here in Southwest Minnesota.
I have probably given out over, in any given election year, probably about 4 or 5 total recommendations where I just say, people, we have got to get this person into St. Paul. There are people like Ron Latz, Aaron Murphy, Rick Hansen, Jamie Becker-Finn. I mean, these are people that I sit and I talk with them, and I can instantly see they're genuine, they care, they've got good ideas, and Minnesota as a whole would be a better place if that person was there representing their district. I am going to give my full endorsement to Anita Gaul here because she is exactly the kind of outstate DFLer we need in St. Paul. 100%. The ideas she has, the perspective she brings are way too valuable. So I am going to beg, implore anyone who's listening to me, if you are in a safe DFL district, great, help that local person out, but get out to 15. And it's gorgeous out there right now. I mean, it's really getting, the fall is a fine time to go out to 15, correct?
I say September is the most beautiful month out here because the sky is blue can be. The stars are clear at night. The nights are crisp and the days are warm. It's the best out here. Absolutely. It is.
I lived in rural America, and I'll tell you what, September, October were my 2 favorite months because it just there is, and you discover how beautiful brown can be. That warm brown. Exactly. The warm shades of brown. It's actually beautiful. And like you said, the blue sky and the sunsets, they're spectacular. Get out to 15. We need door knockers. First of all, this district is huge. So we need people to go for the entire district and door knock in these communities. She clearly needs donations. Gas is not cheap, especially when you're driving from Mankato to South Dakota on a regular basis. So you need to get out there and basically give her donations. Help her any way you can. Anita, what is your website so people can find you and donate and volunteer?
All right. Now, you're going to groan because it's so cheesy, but it's my campaign slogan,
It's the
too.
best.
Are you ready?
It's the best. I love this. Go ahead.
All right. It's AnitaYourVote.com.
Yes!
Yes! I know. People are like, they kind of look at you like, that's really cheesy, but then they grin because they get it, and it sticks in your head. So there you go, AnitaYourVote.com.
AnitaYourVote.com. I'll link to all this. I'll spotlight this interview. Anita Gaul, hey, I'm glad you're running in 15. You're exactly what the DFL needs. And, God bless you. I hope that you pull this off and we're seeing you in St. Paul. It'd be fantastic.
Oh, I thank you so much. I appreciate all the support. I thank the support of everybody who's listening. I could use it, and thank you for this opportunity, Matt. I'm really appreciative.